going to ask Amy to begin. How did you first get inspired to go into your career path? Of course, ending up at NIST, which is one of the most interesting and prestigious parts of the government. I would just note that ASME has a very long-standing relationship with NIST, kind of over 100-year partnership there. So tell us a little bit about your path to NIST.
Yeah, so I'll start back when I was in undergrad. I had two internship experiences. One was in industry, and my experience there, I wouldn't say it was bad, but it wasn't that exciting for me. It was a lot of applying procedures and not learning many new things, and not really applying what I was learning in school. Again, that was just my experience. But then in contrast, my research experience, internship experience, was a lot more interesting. I felt like we were doing things at the cutting edge of knowledge. And most important thing actually was that I felt like we were having real impact. We were solving really big problems, or we were working on solving really big problems like sustainability, for example. So that was really highlighted the difference for me, and convinced me that I needed to go on to grad school, and it was worth the extra effort that was needed. Again, like academia, I would say research careers need at least some sort of graduate school experience. And in the case of national labs in the US, probably a PhD. And I've continued to be interested by all the different areas of research I've been in. And now fire research, is really interesting for me because, again, because of the impact that we can have on reducing fire losses and different things like that. So that's what I would say was the driver for me.
Awesome, thank you. And Dhaval, what about you? What drove you to the entrepreneurship world, and talk a little bit about your path?
Yeah, actually, I clearly remember one incident happened, and there was a surgical error in one of my relatives' operations, and that had sparked me an interest into this field. And I just had thought, after seeing what was the implants inside the patient, and then I came to know that this has been designed by engineer at a certain place. So I just thought that if it is designed by an engineer, then the margin of error should be less. I guess that particular incident has drove me to combine this two virtually one of the two very beautiful professions, that is medical science and engineering. So on that point onwards, I have kept a broad mind, and the challenges were keep coming, and I had keep exploring. And now that I have expanded my experience of designing different things from orthopedic surgeries to dental surgeries and some other stuffs as well. So that's how I got into it, just combining these.
That's an incredible origin story to get involved originally, because as you mentioned, engineers can really engineer a safer world, and it seems like you saw that head on. We have a question here in the chat about the importance of internships and networking into translating that into a career. So can you both talk a little bit about, and we'll start with Amy on this one, how your network expanded, and maybe there were some doors that opened to introduce you to some either people or fields you didn't know about prior?
Yeah, networking is extremely important, and internship experiences have been really key in my career. So again, I mentioned my research experience in undergrad. The master's advisor that I ended up having in grad school, was attracted to me because of that research experience. He knew the person I had worked with in that experience. And actually the same thing happened when I got my job at NIST. My grad school advisor had worked previously at NIST, and all of those people at NIST knew him. So there was clear connections there. So it definitely can help a lot. And so, leverage all of your contacts and make sure you talk to your mentors and see what opportunities they
Yeah,
might have available, and make sure they know what you're interested in, because if they think that you're in a PhD program that you might be interested in um, being in academia or industry, or maybe you're not sure, maybe you want to explore different options. One thing, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and so one of the things that I did as a PhD student was taught a class as a grad student. And that was a really great experience. It was really hard. So I totally respect all the effort teachers put in, especially virtually now.
of course.
But I decided I didn't want to do that at the time. So um, yeah, just make sure your mentors know what you're interested in, and what options they can and give you.
Dhaval, same question. Can you talk a little bit about your network and how it might have launched you into a different direction? Perhaps there was an ASME moment from our, large umbrella of connecting people that facilitated that.
Yes, actually, there is a particular ASME connect with this, because back then when I was researching for knee replacement implants, I just badly stuck at one point, and I was able to remove that hurdle through one professor that I have met with him on the I guess IDSA International Design and Simulation Challenge 2015 in Boston. So I had been in touch with him because we were sharing the same field, and I have kept on taking guidance from him. And when I was stuck at this particular moment, it was the person whom I have met through the ASME network actually got useful for me to remove that hurdle from it. And eventually I was able to file a product on it. This is the one thing. And yes, networking has been instrumental in my entrepreneurship and my career as well. Because, when you create something for one doctor, if he or she really finds it suitable, then he might transfer or suggest these things to their further networks. So that's
Right.
how you keep on growing. And that one particular incident happened where a local doctor who is very known to me has introduced me to the same fellow, to an engineer fellow who was working just like me, but he was really, really vastly experienced in the field in which I'm working in. So that's how I found my mentor. And after this through networking, well, after meeting with my mentor, my entrepreneurship and my working trajectory has taken a whole new turn in my professional career. So yes, networking plays a very, very vital role in an individual's professional career.
Awesome, and I apologize if you can hear a siren in the background. But speaking of sirens and pressure and conflict, we have a question in the chat about how do you handle the pressure? Your day-to-day, projects can and impart a lot of pressure and stress. And so, talk a little bit about your management of that, and either if that's something you learned in school or elsewhere, and any recommendations you'd have. So, I'd start with Amy on that one.
Sure. I think this is an interesting question. I kind of feel like research careers may not be as pressure filled as industry, just my perspective. But I would say being in grad school is a lot of pressure. There's
Sure.
yeah, it's like there's not as much structure there. It's kind of all on you to make things move forward. Um, but I will say that no matter what job you're in, you can feel pressure. And one of the things I would think about is maybe what is causing that pressure. Is it deadlines that you don't think are possible to make, or pressure that you're putting on yourself for some reason? Try to think about what's causing it and see if you can change that. If it's deadlines that are imposed upon you, like see if you can talk to the people that impose the deadlines and explain and try to adjust them, because and justify why that's necessary. So I would say like I don't feel a huge amount of pressure day to day because I mean, again, I feel like I really love what I'm doing. I feel like it has really big importance, and so I think it's enjoyable. And again, there's not a huge amount of like deadline kind of pressure at least at NIST.
Sure. And of course, I think these types of pressures can take on different faces, right? And so you talked about your master's career. There are there's a lot of room for you to be the person to hold yourself to these deadlines, and to it's a lot of self drive. Dhaval, same question about your current work, and how do you find your ability to manage the stress, and any advice to our attendees on that specifically?
Yeah, this is again, I would also say that this is a very good question, because mental health or stress can take a serious toll on your health and your well-being. So my answer is on the other side of what Amy just mentioned, because while you are designing or making some sort of medical things for particular one surgery, you feel a lot more pressure because someone else's health is depending on what you are designing. So for me personally, that moment or that kind of situation is very tense sometimes, because you also need to maintain a particular deadline firstly, then you have to be very accurate on your design skills and manufacturing also. So what I do generally is I have a hobby since I was a child. I play tabla, which is broadly known as the Indian drums. So I would say that to have a certain stress buster with you, which you can really use that as a go-to thing. For me, it is music. For someone else, maybe a sport. For the other one, it may be reading something. For the other one, maybe something else. So I would really say that to have a go-to thing with you, which you can really enjoy in your me time. I guess when you use that hobby as your go-to thing or as a stress buster, that will really help you to get rid of all these mental conditions that are now I can say the usual part of the business in this world, because pressure and stress will be there at a certain point in different forms at the different times.
That is so important. I think oftentimes, maybe especially in engineering, that doesn't get talked about enough because it's maybe more focused on the harder sciences and the softer sciences. But I think your fusion therein is really helpful, and I'm sure a lot of our attendees, especially those in school, can relate to that. So thank you for that answer. I guess I would ask, specifically, Amy, how have you noticed any shifts at the National Institute of Standards and Technology? Because it's a very old part of the government, and but it's also at the forefront a lot of emerging technology. So with your work, we have a question here about what has been the shift you've seen most notably?
This shift, like over
I
the decades, or
Yeah, I guess
yeah,
the shift from, right when it started, it was a lot more technical, but now, I mean,
yeah.
I've been to the lab that you work at, and we got a tour as an ASME office in DC, and I was just fascinated and impressed, and the technology you work with was is incredible.
Yeah, so I mean, NIST is kind of huge. There's like, even just in the Gaithersburg campus, there's like 3,000 people there. So it's kind of vast, and I'm not totally familiar with everything, but I can speak specifically to Fire Research Division, which I think gets at some of the shifts that you're talking about. Like, it used to be that the research in Fire Research Division was um very um like fundamental combustion research, and and even some working with the fire service, but it has shifted more where we're incorporating machine learning into, I work in smoke detection. So we're incorporating new technologies, and we're learning about them. We're hiring people in those areas who are experts in those areas as well. So, yeah, we're definitely trying to be at the forefront of technology, which we have to because of our it's part of our name. So you know,
That's right.
we're constantly trying to figure out what the emerging areas are. And, you know, that's across NIST. But yeah, I'm most familiar with the fire research.
Well, thank you for that. I think we have a minute left, so I'd ask you both to just give a 30-second words of advice for our attendees, especially in these uncertain times. You know, what would you say they can harness most out of their ASME experience? What has worked for you the best? Start with Deval and then go to Amy. Close us out.
Yeah. I would suggest that while you are working on a single particular track, keep your observations on for the connecting event that is happening along the way, because you may never know what connecting event may open the door for even bigger opportunity that the path you're working on. So I would say that to all my fellow listeners, that keep your eyes on always for observation, and keep evaluating each and every connecting event that is happening while you are working on a particular thing. That's the short and sweet thing I would like to say at the end.
Thank you so much. Amy, quickly, if you can transition us, that'd be great.
Sure. So yeah, I would say, especially from the research side of things, stay curious, keep learning, and you know, there's all kinds of problems that are emerging all the time. So you know, keep learning about different issues, and you know, keep your options open.